respected Chief Minister, Government of UP, Mr. Akhilesh Yadav Sahab, respected Mr. R.S. Sharma, Secretary IT, Mr. Alok Ranjan, Chief Secretary, Uttar Pradesh, His Excellency. I apologize, sir, for my delayed arrival, but on the day after Republic Day, I think no aeroplanes can be expected to come on schedule. I'm very grateful to the government of Uttar Pradesh for this opportunity to come back to my hometown. Sir, this is the place where I grew up, where I studied. So it's always a pleasure and a joy to come back and meet family here. And I think, like everybody else on the dais, there is some UP connection with all of us. As a person from UP, I know that this state has enormous potential, very solid educational traditions, a demographic advantage which very few other states will have, and cities which can grow to become IT hubs. So I think that this event is both opportune and appropriate. I'd like to concentrate what I say in two broad areas. I know Sharma Sahab will expand wonderfully on the theme of Digital India, of which he is the architect. But I'd like to talk about the infrastructure which underpins the entire Digital India vision and the Make in India vision, and where do we stand there. And the second piece that I would like to talk about is what should be some priorities for the state of UP as it moves ahead. In the last decade, IT in the country and telecom have had a roaring kind of growth. Our teledensity has grown, and this is somewhat akin to what Korea has done in 40 years, but on the IT side. But our teledensity has grown from 5% to more than 7% in a decade. Our broadband penetration has increased too. But the growth has been primarily driven, both for voice and data, by mobile connectivity. In this context, we are possibly the most price-sensitive market in the country, in the world, and our tariffs are very, very aggressive. Much of the growth has been in the context of favorable policies, demand-driven network growth, and competition-induced decline in tariffs. Although we were governed by voice in the decade that has passed, the next decade, and we can see that happening now, is going to be data-driven. Today, data consumption is growing at a compound annual growth rate of some 56%. So this kind of growth demands that there needs to be infra to meet the requirements. The other reason that we as a country need to concentrate on this is because, if nothing else, data growth is a marker as well as a trigger for economic development. Most of the studies that you would see globally will indicate huge benefits by improving data penetration. I'm not going into those numbers here, but also that the impact of these growth is higher for lower and middle income countries than it is for the higher income countries. So you're going to see an incremental growth where the income levels are low, the possibilities of growth are much larger. The ICT sector has already contributed substantially to the economic growth across sectors, enhancing both efficiency, competitiveness, and our technological edge. Equally significant has been the contribution of ICT in inclusive growth, and that's of concern to nearly every state government, to use this as a trigger for ensuring inclusive growth and ensuring that everybody shares in the growth path that the sector brings. Now our services are becoming seamlessly linked also across mobile, internet, and other modes of delivery. Aadhaar enables identities to be authenticated online or via the mobile phone. we are able to ensure that not only through computers but through mobile devices we are connected, and also through a whole range of devices we are just beginning to explore. And this is the area of machine-to-machine communications and the Internet of Things, which actually open up enormous new possibilities for us. The Digital India vision, as we know, does have three broad areas of focus: the digital infrastructure as a utility, governance and services on demand, and digital empowerment. Now, on this, one core piece of the architecture is the broadband availability to all. In rural areas, largely where we have to penetrate, the national optical fiber with the government user network that will ride over it will connect to 150,000 gram panchayats. And this huge investment will need to be matched by almost 4 times the investment. At a recent discussion, I had flagged the issue that when we look, we keep talking about infrastructure, but infrastructure is actually maybe 20 to 25% of the game. Devices contribute about 10-15%. Digital literacy, which tends to take a life of its own, maybe 5-10%. The huge elephant that we have to think of is the services, the content, the applications. And this is the whole opportunity, and this is the area of work that we need to focus. In the urban areas, and this is something that we need to also ponder, while we are seeing enormous growth rates, the broadband penetration in urban areas is also poor. So what we are looking at is supporting through policy and regulatory framework the urban areas also. I've been told to move fast, so I will not go into those details. Perhaps in the round table we'll have more opportunity. I would like actually at this point of time to just discuss 2 or 3 things which I think that the government of Uttar Pradesh needs to be thinking about at this point of time. I think that every state which wants to have an ambitious IT plan needs to have a clear-cut right-of-way policy. Today, when infrastructure for telecom is laid, if the cost of 1 kilometer of laying that optic fiber is, say, 50,000 rupees, the cost of right-of-way and the delays can reach up to 3 lakhs per kilometer. And this kind of cost is completely unsustainable. It will ensure that the infrastructure does not get laid. It's a surprising thing, and it's a little known fact, that the Indian Telegraph Act provides for cost of restitution when you're laying the infrastructure. The same Indian Telegraph Act is used by the electricity sector for laying the electricity lines. If anybody reads the Electricity Supply Act, you will find the same Telegraph Act referred to for right-of-way. Do we create these kind of hurdles in the way of the electricity sector? Do we charge lease rentals? I think this requires a sober thought by state governments, and I do believe that any state which applies its mind to this policy will see the change. So the point is really actually to recognize telecom as a core infrastructure, just as we do water and the electricity. Secondly is the issue of making it mandatory for all new urban developments, whether it is large buildings, whether it is new societies, to provide for infrastructure for telecommunications. We mandate in our building bylaws that you have to have the electrical network, you need to have the water supply in place, you need to also lay down the telecom network. All our new roads should provide for ducts for all utilities, including for telecom. In at least the 2 proposed ITES hub towns, I suggest that the municipal bodies could be tasked to provide ducts along the city roads. The reason this is critical, as I've already mentioned, is that it triples the cost of infrastructure if we don't take care of this. And the last area that I would like to flag is where in the rural areas the government of India is investing as in the National Optical Fiber Network or the left-wing affected areas, which touches 1 or 2 districts of UP, the state government needs to come forward proactively and actually take ownership. No infra is going to run, no services will be delivered unless the state government so desires. And I think the ownership and acceptance of these infrastructure is prime to leveraging them. Finally, UP is a state of great traditions, and I'm certain that with this leadership that it currently enjoys, that this is the right time and the right place for this state. Thank you.